Live stream is on.
Hello, Global Theater. My name is Gerry Fialka. Today is July 9, 2021. We want to thank Clinton Ignatoff for helping us. Thank you, Clinton, you Superman, you. And it is an honor and a pleasure to be here with Peter, but I don't know how to correctly pronounce your last name, Peter, so you're going to tell us how to do that.
It's Chrisp, as in Christmas and Christ.
Chris, how easy is that? Christmas and Christ. We like that. And so, Peter, what's the best thing for a human being?
Well, if it's personal fulfillment, I think traveling and meeting as many people as possible. But if it's what's for humanity, I think not traveling at all, really, staying at home, and because traveling and meeting people has led to this pandemic. And
well, dang, that's a pretty good answer, because you embrace what Pascal
yeah, I was thinking of that. Yeah, all the problems of humanity are to do with not being able to stay at home in your bedroom. Yeah,
exactly.
That's quotes. Yeah.
But it's also that whole end of the spectrum, like traveling, meeting people's good, not traveling, not necessarily meeting a whole bunch of other people's good. So it's sussing out that embracing contradiction.
We can travel Peter, our books, can't we? We can travel in our imaginations, and yeah.
Sorry, very good.
Yeah.
No. What's your favorite form of information? How it comes into you?
Well, I really love one-person theatre shows. You know, I love reading books, but my favorite kind of theatre is one person on a stage being someone else and telling you, and it's just I've seen so many great one-person theatre shows. David Benson did a show about Kenneth Williams, or just I think acting to me is magical, and so I love to be in the presence of an actor, and that takes me back to the ancient bards and but books. Yeah.
That's amazing, because that encompasses theater and performance, but it's also encompasses the one person. You ever study Ruth Draper?
Oh, well, yeah, she did monologues, didn't she? I think, is that right? Yeah, she inspired David Benson, who did the Kenneth Williams show. This is my favorite one-person show, and he said it was based on seeing her. Yeah. Eamon Morris, great one as well, about Flann O'Brien, the brother, and Adam Harvey does a brilliant Finnegan's Wake one-man show.
Oh, I've seen that. That is amazing. Yes. So that's good. You sort of scooted being in front of a magazine wall of books. You sort of scooted reading really quick. You go, well, reading. But let's go to reading for a second. Did you grow up a reader because your parents were reading you as an example, or reading as an example, or did they tell you and raise you to read, or did you pick up reading on your own?
No, my parents did read, and my father used to read us the Winnie the Pooh stories and put on all the voices, and they had books, and so I was always reading. Yeah.
So back to information. Why do you think people collect or gather information?
Well, I think we're without it, we're helpless, aren't we? That's how we survive as human beings. We're just completely defenseless without all the information we need to survive from the very beginning. Just how to get to survive in the world.
Do you think this need or want to collect information is more innate or more invented?
I think the two are inextricably combined. I think we're hardwired to learn and to collect information. To learn languages from very small, from as a baby, and we've evolved that way as our brains got bigger.
Yeah. So if I asked you this question, how would you answer? It's just simple. It's a new question to my script. What is information?
What is information? I don't know. It's everything. It's everything. It's everything that comes at us. It's the lights hitting us is a form of information. It's everything that we experience is information. You know, a heat on your hand is information. A pain is an information. Yeah, it's all coming into us all the time, isn't it? The information from our feet right now, what they're doing, much more than just what you're reading. And yeah.
Seems as though, yeah, because I brought that up because of someone said that Finnegan's Wake is a satire of information overload.
Yeah, it could be.
You know, and then last night we were studying Seamus Dean, Reading in the Dark, and the gentleman brought up curse of knowledge. You know, that we're overwhelmed. There's so much knowledge accessible to us. What's the difference between knowledge and information?
Well, I think knowledge, I don't know. I suppose knowledge is a way of filtering information and sorting it and making sense of it. Whereas information, as you say, is just we're being bombarded all the time with news and yeah.
Do thoughts, well, no, the next question would be, did humans more invent thinking, or is it more innate? And again, I know it's both, and it's sort of you can put it in all these questions, you can put into the context you want, but it's sort of like your hunch. Do you think humans invented thinking, or is it innate in us?
Yes, we did invent it, but yes, it is innate as well. Yeah, yes. We did invent it. We invented thinking. Yeah, and we got better at it as we evolved. But yeah, I can't see how you can separate those again.
You can't separate. Here's the funny thing: a lot on all my innate and invented questions, a lot of them you can't separate, but we do because we invented language. So that's the next question. Is language more innate in humans or more invented?
Well, it's innate now, but when it was invented, it was invented. 150,000 years ago, when Homo sapiens was starting to use language, they were inventing it. But then because the people who could use language were better at surviving and passing on, they passed on the brain ability to learn languages. So then it became innate from having been invented.
That is really well put. Do thoughts create emotions?
Yes.
Oh, I know another one I'm thinking. Fill in the blank. I don't know what I think until I... what would you say?
I don't know what I think until I don't know, till I've thought about it. I don't know.
Well, I thought about it. Yeah, that's right. Well, no, you would love Joan Didion said, I don't know what I think until I wrote it. I write it.
Yeah.
And McLuhan says, I don't know what I think until I've said it.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing right now, isn't it? What I'm saying, I'm thinking, I'm coming to what I'm thinking from saying things, which I've put, yeah.
Right. Well, the funny thing is that here's the bottom line question of all this is, do you think humans are more feeling beings or more thinking beings? And I know, of course, again, it's both, and it doesn't matter, but just your hunch.
Yeah, I think they're more feeling beings. You know, there are definite personality types. You can see it with the political spectrum, can't you? The way that people will just adjust the information depending on their innate political, whether they're a conservative or a liberal, and you fit the arguments you're given, the rational arguments, to your perspective that you've already got.
Yeah, they switched a couple of years ago. They switched seeing is believing to believing is seeing.
Yeah, because
they said the cliche was seeing is believing, but then it got to that point where they go, no, you only believe this. you believe the stuff that you already believe, which is what you see. So you got tunnel vision, or not you, but people have a sort of tunnel vision.
We all have, don't we? And also consciousness is now thought of as a narrative you put on top of the unconscious instinctive reactions to things. You know, they've just have an experiment showing that decisions are made before you're rationally aware you've made a decision. And
well, now you're talking neuroscience, so you must have ESP, Peter, because that was my next question. Does the brain more detect consciousness or create consciousness? Like, is consciousness there bubbling away and we're detecting it, or are we creating it?
I think we're creating it on top of what. Some people say that means that we don't have free will, but I don't think that's true, because your unconscious is still you. You never decide things that are out of character for you. It's just your you make a narrative afterwards, your consciousness.
Yeah, that's great, because I have this question about what's the difference between conscious and consciousness?
Well, conscious is being aware, and consciousness is the idea of our narrative brain making sense of things. In the waking form anyway, because there's also the unconscious.
Yeah. That's Hollis Frampton, great filmmaker, says narrative was born out of the animal spirit because we're all waiting to die.
Huh. Yeah.
So can you forget to die?
Yes. Yeah, I don't think about it much. Try not to. I used to think about it a lot when I was young, but no, I don't. No.
Beautiful.
No.
Do you more pursue happiness or more pursue meaning?
Happiness.
What's faster, speed of light or speed of thought?
Light.
Poet Audre Lorde said, you can't dismantle the master's house using the master's tools. Yvonne Rainer responded, she said, you can if you expose the tools. What new tool do you suggest?
I don't know, pass.
Well, what's a tool that you're fond of now? You know, that's enlightening you, like it doesn't have to be new, but what's one of your favorite tools? Like you said you love reading, you love going to one-person shows. What's a tool that inspires you?
Yeah, I suppose books are tools, aren't they? Books.
Yeah.
Think of anything you want.
Yeah. What do you worry about when you go to bed at night?
What do I worry about when I go to bed? I don't know. Pass. I don't know really.
So McLuhan learned from Ezra Pound, the poet, that artists are the antenna of the race. They're like receiving and broadcasting the hidden psychic effects of our inventions. And I think this was illustrated by James Joyce's Finnegan's Wake, because he was sitting in Paris in the 1920s writing down what he heard on shortwave radio. So it was almost like the metaphor that Pound created, antenna of the race, became a reality, is almost proven by Finnegan's Wake. But what McLuhan was interested in is how, even though we can turn to the artist and the writers to reveal the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, we still ignore the hidden psychic effects. Like, why do you think we ignore them?
Well, we're not consciously aware of them, are we? Yeah, I don't. Yeah. Well, we ignore. I don't know really. We ignore most of things that are going on all the time, don't we? We have to limit what's coming into us. Like,
right, but is that more like, back to conscious? Is that more conscious, linear thinking based, or more emotionally based?
Yeah, it's about your brain just chooses what's important in any moment, to you in consciousness, and you have to sort, like how we forget most of our memories. We only remember things that are important to us often, I think. We can't remember everything because the brain would be overloaded. So you remember things that fit narratives, don't you? That certain narratives that are important. If you read different biographies, I've been reading different biographies of The Fall by members of The Fall, the band, and they've all got totally different memories of the same events because they're fitting them to their own different narratives, and they've limited, they've cut out the bits that didn't fit their narrative. So we're always filtering information to fit the stories we create around us. And for example, you remember things because you've got photographs of them. And often people don't remember anything if they haven't seen the photographs or they haven't told the stories over and over again. I think memory is a creative thing that we do. When we tell stories and we remember things, and if you...
That was good, Peter. Thank you. Now, you mentioned the rock band, The Fall.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a funny anecdote. I talked to Captain Beefheart 52 times in 1991 on the phone. He'd call me once a week in the middle of the night. And I said, I heard you're having an art show in New York in the fall. And he went, and he was, and he goes, what's the fall? Now, I mean, he literally acted like a savant sometimes, and he might have been joking or he might not have been, but it was very interesting how he could have said, well, The Fall is a rock band. What do you mean?
Yeah, I saw that exhibition. It came to Brighton, his paintings. He had a big painting exhibition. Yeah. Brilliant. Yeah. I loved his paintings.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because The Fall were very influenced by Captain Beefheart, I think. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. He influenced a lot of people, and rightfully so. So on memory, what can you conjure up your earliest memory ever, or one of them?
Well, I think I remember when I was about 3 or 4 seeing dead seabirds on the Thames beach when there was a very cold winter, 1963, I think. Yeah, it was a really bitter cold winter, and I just remember seeing lots of dead seabirds along the shoreline. That's an image that stayed in my brain. And I don't have a photograph of that, so that's something that's a genuine memory rather than a...
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I over the years asking that question for the last 40 years, I've changed it to, from what is your earliest memory, can you conjure it up? Because that's how most... Now, you've sort of already answered this, but I'm going to ask it anyways. Is memory more a curse or more a blessing?
Well, it's a blessing. Well, we need... we do. But it's something that we create all the time. We create memories, and you can create false memories, can't you? There's the famous American news anchor who believed he'd been in a helicopters over Vietnam, because do you remember that story? And he was then accused by the people who'd actually been the pilots that so you weren't on the plane, and he had to apologize. But he had genuinely believed that he'd been on this helicopter because he told that story several times, and so we tell stories.
Yeah, that's Dan Rather has told 5 different stories where he was when Kennedy was shot. And I mean, he's a good investigative journalist, but he just messed up his memory somehow and says, well, maybe it was for convenience or whatever. But that happens often.
Yeah, there's a band in Brighton called the Galinsky Brothers. I used to see in the 70s and 80s, and I went to Taunton with their guitarist once, and I didn't see him again for 30 years until they had a reunion. And I said, we went to Taunton once, and he said, I've never been to Taunton, because he never ever told that story or reinforced that memory. When I got home, I've got a picture of him and me in Taunton together in something. So I've got the proof that we were in Taunton. But he'd never told that story, so that memory just wasn't part of his narrative.
Yep. And he could just go, you Photoshop that, Peter. That's not a true photo.
Yeah.
Are you more afraid of old ideas or more afraid of new ideas?
I'm not afraid of ideas. No, I'm not. No. I like old ideas and I like I like ideas.
Yeah.
And,
Peter, tell me a role model within your immediate family, someone who had an impact on you, just briefly, and what specifically was that impact?
yeah, well, I'd say my mum, because she's a very tolerant and kind and creative person. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, she was so supportive and yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. Then outside your immediate family, someone who had an impact on you, role model, what was specifically that impact?
Well, I suppose there was a tutor, Charles Peake was his name, who was my tutor at Queen Mary College, and he was a brilliant Joycean, and he was so inspiring, and he'd break into song. He knew all the old music hall songs. He wrote a really good book, Citizen and the Artist, and he was just an inspiring person to be around. So it's, yeah, academic. Yeah.
In the book title, once again?
He wrote a book called The Citizen and the Artist, Charles Peake. Charles Peake. It's really good. Yeah.
Very good. And so we're going to get to Joyce, but a couple more. Were you raised a particular religion?
No, I was raised an atheist, in fact. My grandparents were Methodist on one side, but my dad, we were always told we didn't believe in God from very young. So I even refused to go to assemblies at school because I thought I was an atheist. So I remember having to go to the Cubs, which is like the Boy Scouts, and we had to go to church parade and stuff. And it was completely baffling to me, baffling. Wow. And I remember our religious education at school, we had RE lessons. And I remember asking the teacher, how did Jesus being crucified save us? And she couldn't answer that, because
right.
So it was baffling to me. But no, I'm really interested in religion. But
do you pray?
No, I don't. No, but I am. I have a bit obsessional compulsive counting type thing. So I used to have, rituals, that kind of thing, which I think is the origin of religion.
Very good. Rituals is
great.
Origin
of ritual is obsessive compulsive things that you think are going to avert.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. That's a heavy topic. But if God does exist, what would you like God to tell you after you die?
Oh, wow. Now, what would I like him to tell me? I don't know. Can't think. It's too big a question.
I don't know is a good answer. We always go first thought, best thought.
Yeah.
God comes up to you and you go, I don't know. And you go, okay, Peter, you're in. So how do you advise someone to deal with enemies? This is what I'm going to set up with a few modern thinkers' thoughts. Alan Watts says, if you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them. Coppola stole from the mob and the samurais. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer. JFK said, forgive your enemies, but don't forget their names. And Fellini says, I need an enemy. So it's a lot of thoughts. It's basically the question is, how do you, Peter, advise someone to deal with an enemy? But first, how would you specifically react to Alan Watts? If you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them.
I think that's true in a way, because, for example, if you look at the David Pakman show at the moment on the YouTube, I love watching him, but it's always about Trump and what's Trump's latest analysis, Trump, and he's empowering Trump by talking about Trump. And it would be much better if we didn't mention Trump at all and never talked about him, because it's empowering him by giving him attention. That's why it's been so good that he's not on Twitter anymore. But just, so that's an example of empowering someone. Yeah,
that's a really good thought. I think Alan Watts would appreciate it. He was a Brit too. Yeah. So how would you advise someone to deal with an enemy aside from that? Is there anything else you would say?
I would just try and cut them out of your life and just avoid them. You know, people say we're all in bubbles now, so with like-minded people, and it's wrong. We should be actually going out and meeting people who are totally against what we believe. But I quite like being in a Brighton is a liberal bubble, like San Francisco and Venice Beach.
Yeah.
So I don't want to be in places where,
yeah, no, that's well put. So Joyce was the first projectionist in Dublin over 100 years ago. He basically checked out of Volta Cinema.
Yeah.
He said, "This is stupid. Why should I go inside a building and see a movie of a tree when I can go outside and see a real tree?" Years later, Faulkner said, "Sometimes the best fiction is more true than journalism. Why do we have to recreate things in order to get them? Why do we have to go to a theatrical play of someone acting out life? Why don't we just live life?"
Yeah, because it's shaped, and it's it's given a narrative shape. So it allows you to look at something in a specific way that's been controlled, rather than just the random information that's coming in around. So but no, I agree about trees. Yeah, you can get much more from looking at a real tree than looking at a film of a tree. Yeah.
Right. And so tell us your through line on pursuing Joyce. You've you've published a blog on Joyce for how many years? When did that start?
That was 2013 I started that. Yeah. I did Finnegan's Wake when I was at university. I read it. I was supposed to be doing a PhD, but I never finished it, and I never intended to finish it. I just wanted to read Finnegan's Wake, so I was a student, and then I didn't read it for 10 years until about 1990, when internet social groups were coming up. So I discovered an online social group, FW Read, and I joined them about in the 90s. And because when I read Finnegan's Wake in the 80s, I was completely on my own. There was no one else to talk to about it. I just had Roland McHugh's annotations, and Charles Peake, my tutor, who had a different attitude to what the book meant. So it was but now that it's all online now, isn't it? There's all these reading groups, Zooms, and
lots. But let's go back a little. So when you were growing up, what first attracted you to reading specific authors? Which authors or books were making an impact on you pre Joyce?
Yeah, well, I went through all the teenage. I loved all the beatnik, the Kerouac, and when I was a teenager, and before Joyce, I don't know. I used to read lots of history as a child, history novels, Henry Treece, books about Vikings, and but what I think my life has changed by just when I discovered Joyce when I was about 16. I just wanted to read Joyce.
What did you start on Joyce? What book?
It was Anthony Burgess's book, Here Comes Everybody, which I got from the library in Southend, and it was just it's such a brilliant. I loved it so much. I just wanted to read James Joyce, and that's why I went to university to do English, so I could read James Joyce. But when I went to Sussex University, and there was no one there who was interested in James Joyce at the time. So I then went to London University, where I met Charles Peake.
So that was good summation of it. But did you go through from Anthony Burgess, Here Comes Everybody, to Finnegan's Wake? What other Joyce?
No, I read Ulysses is the big book for me. Yeah, Ulysses. Yeah, I read Ulysses.
After the Burgess, then you read Ulysses?
Yeah, I did. I was watching the film as well. You know, the Joseph Strick film. That was shown on the BBC in the 70s, and I just thought it's amazing. I loved it, and my aunt had a copy of Ulysses, which I borrowed, and so I read it when I was a teenager.
But then, did you go through all the other Joyce? Did you study all the other, or are you just Ulysses in the Wake?
No, I did Dubliners as well, and a portrait. Yeah, yeah. I've read them all. Yeah.
You know, I was talking. You know, there's tutorials all over YouTube now. You know, there's like 8 minutes why you should read Ulysses, and you know, these tutorials are amazing. What these people are doing with graphics, or you know, story of life, all these literature. I'm sure you've seen some of them.
Yeah.
And I have a friend. I'm into Frank Zappa deeply, and he a new tutorial period about Zappa and time, because Joyce and Zappa cross over a lot. They both think that all times are happening now.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah, there's this all at onceness. And Frank has specified it, and he listed James Joyce in his first album as an influence with like 150 other people who influenced him. And I said to Andrew Greenaway, who's there in England, I said, what do you think of this video on Zappa and time? He goes, well, I think it's great, but I only understood half of it because it was very detailed musically. And I said, well, that's a good thing. You know, you half. McLuhan says a half a truth is still a lot of a truth. So I said, well, how much do you understand of Frank? And he goes, 65%. So I thought, well, that was good. He gave it a percentage. So let's start with Joyce first and then Finnegan's Wake. How much of Joyce do you think you understand, just percentage wise, just a guess?
Well, I don't think that you can do it. I think you create your own understanding of Joyce. And I don't think Joyce completely understood Finnegan's Wake. I think so. I don't know really.
But Peter, just give me a just give me a hunch. You know Joyce pretty deep. You've studied a lot. You could drop Roland McHugh's name, and I'm sure you've read a lot of books. Richard Ellman. But you know, what would you say you know about Joyce? You know him 50%, 80%?
I think that you could only know 30% of Joyce.
Okay, that's good.
Because it's so rich. It's so rich. There's an endless journey of discovery. So even if you've read all the notes and all the sources, there's so much more to it that can you know. So and that's why it's endlessly fascinating, because I'm learning stuff all the time in these different reading groups, different people's attitude, opinions, and it's the most endlessly fascinating writing, because there's so much more to discover in it.
Yeah, no, I agree. You really nailed it there, saying 30%. And you said and that's what McLuhan updated his main percept, the medium as a message, to the user as the content. I mean, with Joyce, anyone can read whatever they want into the Wake, mainly. It's like a crystal ball or something. Yeah. But you said 30% for Joyce. Now for Finnegan's Wake, what would you say? How much of Finnegan's Wake do you understand? Is it same amount, 30, or would you vary?
Well, yeah, probably 20. Probably
20. That's great. Yeah, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I love it because it's endless what we can read in. And I think if anyone reads your blog, they'll realize that you are deep into the Wake, and that you really, you know, you can find patterns. And, you know, I've run a Finnegan's Wake reading club for 20 years, and that doesn't mean I know anything. And I don't want to use Fleet or Roland McHugh. I want other people can use that, but now I'm like, I just want to look at it and let it bubble surface wise, not deep. In fact, we had a British guy who used to come to our Finnegan's Wake reading club, and he would say everything that was in Roland McHugh, because there was no internet when we started.
Yeah.
he would say all the things in Roland McHugh without using Roland McHugh, because his knowledge was just like, well, that's a battle and this is a river name. And I thought that was great because, you know we can read anything in it.
It's great because it's all up for grabs, Finnegan's Wake. There are no real experts. All the books on Finnegan's Wake disagree with each other, and I disagree, so if everyone's opinion is valid, and it's very democratic.
Yeah. Well, I always claim that Marshall McLuhan broke the Finnegan's Wake code. And, it's not that his is better or worse, but it's that he and then that leads to a big project we're doing right now on how the CIA used the Finnegan's Wake to invent MK Ultra mind control program.
Really?
I mean, it's an easy follow through because the MK Ultra fed LSD to the hippies, and the hippies invented the internet, and then the internet is what Finnegan's Wake is. I always say, what is Finnegan's Wake? It's the internet. It's a book disguised as the internet.
Yeah,
but But really what it is, people think it's a book, but really what it is whatever's going to be after the internet. He discovered we're all obsessed with the internet, but there's going to be something after the internet. And that's what Finnegan's Wake invented, Yeah.
It's the book the internet was waiting. Yeah. It was waiting for the internet, wasn't it? Yeah. That's incredible that. So what are you doing with your MK Ultra project? Are you making a film, or you?
Oh, everything. We just started. I mean, I learned the proposal years ago, and then this student at Stanford wrote to me a couple weeks ago, and he said he thought it up 2 years ago on his own, and now he's saw my listing online about it, and so we're just talking. So it's pretty remarkable how many. It's also that said that your British secret police studied the Wake to discover Mason's secrets. Because Joyce used to hang out with the Masons in the bars.
Yeah.
And then he would tell their secrets in the Wake. Yeah, it's endless. I have you ever heard this one? This one's really funny. Nora was pissed at Joyce when he went and saw mediums, but she wasn't so pissed when he went and saw prostitutes. Now, knowing Joyce, does that reek of could be true, or does that sound total bullshit to you?
Yeah, I think he did. I think he made fun of mediums. He didn't believe in. He parodies a seance in Ulysses. He didn't believe in mediums, but he did believe in the occult. He did. So yeah.
But the question was, the question is, would Nora be more pissed at him for seeing mediums than prostitutes?
I don't think so. No.
No, you don't think so? Okay. And you've read all the Nora books and all that too.
Yeah. I think he was quite faithful to Nora. Apart from a couple of flirtation type things, the prostitutes were really before, weren't they? Right.
But I'm just saying, not so much her pissed at him seeing, but just the fact that it was creepier for him to see a medium than a prostitute. It's not that I think he was a family man. Pretty.
Yeah. He's working all day long, drinking at night with a family. He didn't have time to see prostitutes.
Right.
Yeah.
So, what first attracted you, Peter, to pursuing your own creative output? So, how would you would say you're a children's book? Like if I met you at a cocktail party, I says, "What do you do? What would you say? A children's book writer, or what would you say?"
I write history books for children, but that's more of just a way of making money, really. I'm fascinated by history, so I write lots of history books. But I'm more into.
You're a historian then.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I write lots of history books. yeah, that's
okay. And then what's your creative output? Because I know you do several things besides the Joyce blog. Are you a visual artist?
I do some visual art. Yeah, that's but I don't know. I don't know really. I've never liked being asked what I do at parties.
Yeah.
I don't know how to describe it really, but
I'll give you a good answer.
I'm in lots of different things, you know. So I do art. I wouldn't call myself an artist, but I do make art. You know? Yeah.
That's smart. Yeah, I always when people ask me, what do you do? I do nothing effectively.
Yes, that's good. Yeah, yeah. I like that.
And then they go, no, I mean, how do you pay your rent and pay for food? So what first attracted you? You already told us sort of where you got that attraction for history. There's something in, I mean, maybe you could reiterate it, but where did you get that interest for history, the pursuit of history?
Well, from an early age, I just loved dressing up. I used to dress up as a Roman soldier on the beach when I was a kid in a plastic helmet, and I just loved Roman history as a small child, and then I loved reading about all the Romans and the Greeks, and Roman literature is one of my favorite things because they're just like us, the ancient Romans. You know, they're so like us. Right? If you read Suetonius or Tacitus, they speak right across to us. So, these are all ancient history, but up here, sort of.
Right. Well, that's sort of all times are happening now. It's no different, you know.
Yeah. We never advance as a species, do we? We're just as stupid now as we ever were. And
well, there's a couple things there. Zappa says that stupidity and ignorance are the building blocks of the universe. So that's why I ask questions, but it's also, is human progress cyclical or cumulative? Are we going in circles, or are we getting worse and better at times?
Yeah, we're just going in circles. We're getting technologically better, but we're not getting any better as human beings to each other. You know, there's just as much nationalism and warfare as ever, and worse. You know, the 60s were an optimistic in some ways, weren't they? And there's much more division now in our societies, in Europe, in America, and in Britain. People are much more. When I was young, we had a very sort of centrist governments, and there was a collective belief in a society, and that's kind of broken apart a bit, I think. But so I don't feel very optimistic about the long term. But,
Right, but I think maybe it's a cone that's circle. It's sometimes getting better and sometimes getting worse, but we're definitely, there's a lot of repeating. It's like that snake eating its own tail kind of metaphor, you know. But what first attracted you to pursuing visual art? Like, do you paint on saws? Is that one of your art forms?
Yeah, a friend of ours just inherited a lot of saws from her father, who was a building foreman, and she got all her friends to do paintings on the saws. So I did a painting of the Thunderbird from Finnegan's Wake on a saw. But that was yeah. But I've always painted and drawn, because my mum's an art teacher, and we just drew all the time when we were kids, and I've never stopped drawing and painting.
Right. So that's what first attracted you. Your mom was sort of encouraging you to paint and draw. Yeah. What's a couple artists that had an impact on you growing up?
Well, Robert Crumb was brilliant, wasn't he?
Really? Wow.
Yeah. I remember as a young teenager, there was an exhibition of comics at the ICA in London, and I just wandered into a screening room on my own. I was about 14, and they had a screen projection of Robert Crumb's Despair comic on frame by frame, and I just thought how astonishingly good that was. The Despair, just brilliant. And
yeah, you picked a good one there. He's amazing. So, and the Crumb documentary is just actually one of the best docs ever made. I'm sure you've seen that. Terry White, Crumb, yeah.
Yeah, that's a great film, yeah.
Yeah. So a screenwriting teacher, Peter, told me that great art or great film or great book is when you can clearly see the intention of the maker. Stanley Kubrick says the opposite. Great film or great art is when you can clearly not see the intention of the maker. What role does intention play in your creative process?
Well, in my creative process, it's probably very big because I'm on my own. But I can see in films, it's a collaboration, isn't it? So you don't know what's gonna. Yeah, but it's interesting, that intention thing, because you might not realize what your real intention was. You know, that people could. You might think you'd written something, and then find out you'd been thinking about something different years later. You know, I don't think James Joyce didn't really have a plan for Finnegan's Wake. He was led by the material, so it was a journey of exploration, and he was discovering stuff, following onwards rather than having any. But
no, that was good. You anticipated. You must have ESP, because I was going to say, well, what do you think Joyce's intention in writing Finnegan's Wake was? Because we often say he wanted to create language about language. He wanted, I mean, my perception is that he was trying to help us understand what reading does to us.
Yeah.
By writing an unreadable book, it's just like what Duchamp did. So Duchamp said there's no art without an audience. When you're creating something, whether it's a history book or a painting, how much are you thinking of your audience in advance while you're doing it?
Well, I don't really think about my audience at all, because when I'm painting, I'm doing it just for me. Well, actually, no. When I'm writing history books, I do think about my readers, because they're children, so I have to keep it simple. And yeah, I have to think about with my books. I have to think about exactly what the audience needs. Yeah, what's important for them to know. So so that's different. Yeah.
Yeah, we're constantly pursuing in our Finnegan's Wake reading clubs. Why did Joyce do this? You know, because he wrote a book that's declared the greatest book ever, Ulysses. And then I've heard this theory too, that he said it got really good reviews, and he says, I'll show them.
But he thought that he was writing for the everyman, for an ordinary reader. He believed that the more stuff he put into the book, the more readers he would get. He said, didn't he, that he loved to think of some African child being pleased to find the name of the African river in Finnegan's Wake. That the idea that the more stuff you put in, he said that, some people would like it for the cricket references, or some people would like it because it refers to Daniel O'Connell's hat. So in a way, I think there's a big delusion at work but I think that being deluded can lead to amazing things, can't it? Having a delusion, and I think really wanted to push language as far as it would go, and just to amazing experimental expressiveness of language, what you can do with language.
Yeah.
And just to,
that was good, because the other day I said, because our Finnegan's Wake reading groups always go like this. We read it, which is the whole point of it. That's what you're supposed to do. Just read it out loud. Don't analyze it. Then we analyze the word like a microscope. And then we start going into the poo-poo caca sex stuff. And everybody's like, oh my God. And then we start trying to figure out, why did he do this? And I said, he did it because he was trying to sell books.
He wasn't trying to sell books, though. He didn't think. No, it was completely. When he was doing it, it was unpublishable, pretty much. He got some stuff. He'd done so well with Ulysses, but very early on, he was in the 20s. he was he was cut off by most of the people who supported him. You know, he was publishing in Transition, which is his tiny little flimsy journal. Yeah. And it only got published because of T.S. Eliot and Faber, who believed in him. Yeah. But his stuff was rejected by the Dial, by, you know, he was, everyone thought he'd gone nuts. Everyone rejected, you know. Right. About even Harriet Shaw Weaver, who was paying for him to write it, didn't like his wake.
Right. But I should step back and say not so much to sell books, is his motive was to write books, which is people don't. This is what Zappa did also. They romanticize it. When you're an artist, you romanticize it. You go, why do you write your music? He says, I write my music for myself. If other people like it, great. But if you're raised in a consumer capitalistic society, you know that, oh, if I say these words and these notes in my song, people might buy it, and then I'll be able to write more music. So it's not so much Joyce was saying to write books, to sell books, but his motive was to write a book.
Yeah, yeah.
His motive.
Yeah. He thought that he was writing for future generations.
Yes.
He said it's not literature. He said it will be one day. So he was doing something. He had a very grand idea of the artistic vocation of making something that was going to be eternally important, you know, to stand up with everything else. And
which I think is amazing, because I always say, if Joyce was here and we just said, you know, this line right here, you know, when we read, there's like 4 references to Princess Di being killed in the tunnel by drunks and photographers or whatever, you know, we read that like the day after Princess Di died. It was just a coincidence, but everybody in the group, we were shaking each other by the shoulders going, can you believe this? It's right in here.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and that's like, for future generations, he knew that if he put, like you said, everything in it, he's bound to hit some. You know?
He's even got Donald Trump in, isn't he? So hotel premises sumptuous. We'll trash his Trump's trumpery. Yeah. And Robert Anton Wilson reckoned he'd got Nagasaki bombing in, and
Nagasaki is well, you mean Robert Anton Wilson? No one else didn't. Roland McHugh get that?
No, I don't think so. I don't think anyone's accepted that. I mean, the McHugh, those people, they're intentionalists, so they only go on what's proved in the notes, you know. So like the Fleet, you know, it's only based on what you can prove Joyce intended.
Fleet doesn't go into other contemporary. Yeah, one of our members is the most scholar. He won't claim he's a Joyce scholar, but he worked for Disney for 40 years. He's brilliant Joyce scholar. He doesn't like to lean towards the predictive ability of the way, but that's fine. I think it's either way you can delve into it and, you know, have.
Yeah, it's a game, isn't it? It's just, I mean,
it's all about having fun
and making your own, shaping it to make your own meanings and learning about incredible. Yeah.
So, if clothing is an extension of our skin, because we sort of touched on this earlier about senses, the 5 senses. Yeah. If clothing extends our skin and knife and fork extends our teeth, let's say the eyelid is extended by the shutter in a camera or a projector. Yeah. What does the writing utensil extend for you? What humanness does it extend, whether it's a keyboard or a pencil?
Yeah, I like a pen. Yeah, a very thin black drawing pen, a Rotring, or
What humanness is that pen extending for you?
It's allowing me to draw. So it's about shape. Yeah, I suppose. Yeah. What humanness?
Yeah, like if the pencil was invented to extend the finger, basically. But you know, there's you know, what's your hunch? Is it extending something other than the finger? What other humanness or sensuality sense?
it's giving expression for the imagination, isn't it?
Yeah, it's extending the imagination, you're saying.
Yeah.
What do you think the motive of the cave artist was?
Well, I think they were making magic and like an early form of cinema too. You know, have you said that? Because if you think of a cave, they're using animal fat lamps which flicker, and so if they were in a dark cave, those animals would have seen alive, and they've even shown how they're drawn with the heads moving and the tail moving. So I think there's an animation showing that if you move around, it's actually like a form of early cinema. It can be, but I think it's to do with abstract thought as well. That the idea that for the first time you're actually creating something which isn't in front of you, that you're using your imagination in a new way, and maybe they were doing it for shamanic ceremonies, for hunting purposes, or maybe it was for initiation rites. Nobody knows, but the fact that they're right at the back of dark places means there have to be a magical perspective, mustn't there? They have to be a ceremonial ritual thing, and it must have been the most magical thing to make and to see, to be taken in and to see these things. Because
It was good, Peter, because I've studied this, the roots of abstract art, and they often go back to Kandinsky and say, well, he invented abstract art. Well, you know, it's a debatable thing, you know, who actually did it, because all the painters before him in the corner of their painting, when they're, you know, like Turner's doing some, you know, seascape, you could take a little part of it and go, that's abstract art. But he sort of had a big vision in the whole painting. And you said abstract thought. What do you think the origin of abstract art is? Do you think
I don't know. Well, that's a different thing, isn't it? It just means that art's not representational, doesn't it? But
not representational.
That's as old as cave art, abstract art. Just patterns on walls. It's abstract art, isn't it? The earliest, so some very simple, patterns, zigzags.
Yeah, because it is true that most of the cave art we see is figurative and not abstract.
Yeah.
You know, so at some point, artists went, whoa, I can go abstract here now. There's a great movie Scorsese made. It's a documentary called How Picasso and Braque affected cinema and how cinema affected Cubism. It's sort of like how they cross-pollinated each other, you know.
There's a lovely film. Have you seen Herzog's film, The Cave of Dreams? That's amazing, isn't that?
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. And in the New Yorker article that's based on is really good too, you know. Yeah. So what, just in general, what's more important for you, conviction or compromise?
I suppose compromise, really. Yeah. I don't. Yeah.
Well, no, that's good, because
in social interactions, because I'm not very certain about my I don't have very strong convictions. You know, I can be. I don't know. Maybe I do. I don't know if I do or not.
No, that's interesting coming from you as a historian, because before you go into that, I just want to compliment.
There was a nice. Is it? In fact, Robert Anton Wilson. Does he say conviction makes convicts? You know, you're or maybe that's John Higgs. That if you have a strong belief, you're in a reality tunnel, and that you should suppose things. That's what you should just suppose rather than be the prison of belief. That's the thing.
Who was the other one besides Robert Anton Wilson you think said that?
It might be John Higgs has written a book about that.
John Higgs, H-I-G-S.
Yeah, he's written a book about the KLF, and he talks about that a lot in that, about reality tunnels. He's gone how we're all in our reality tunnels, and we should realize that we should just suppose what we and don't believe anything. Just suppose it. It's all right to suppose anything, but to know that that's just a way of looking at the world, and that it's not necessarily objectively true. It's an interpretation.
Yeah, I'm who came first, John Higgs or Robert Anton Wilson? Are they peers or?
No. John Higgs is a writer. He lives in Brighton now. Actually, he's written about him. Yeah.
He's before Robert Anton Wilson.
No, he's a modern writer. Robert Anton Wilson.
Oh no, he's after.
He's a commentator on Robert Anton Wilson. Yeah.
Right. No, that's fine. It's Robert Anton Wilson who said that. Because Robert Anton Wilson's the reality tunnels guy.
Yeah.
As far as I know, but Robert Anton Wilson's a Groucho Marxist. That's why I like him.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah, I love all that. Yeah. They're brilliant.
But I wanted to compliment you first, Peter. There's no right or wrong answers to any of these questions, but that one you got right about conflict and compromise. So, that's heavy because also the film that's called Fog of War by Errol Morris.
I've seen that.
He gets McNamara to pretty much admit he's a war criminal, but he says, I won, so I write the history books. I mean, is that pretty much true? Being the historian you are of history, is it who wins writes the history books?
That does happen, doesn't it? But it depends if the information survives. The history can always be rewritten, and that's happening now, isn't it? With all the statues being pulled down all over the place, and the way we reinterpret history. And but I think in the long run, the right-wing view of history is not going to prevail. The historians are not going to be saying that Donald Trump was a great president.
Howard Zinn's book, is that a dominant example of what you're saying? Howard Zinn's People's History of America?
No, I don't know that. No, I've never read that.
Oh yeah, he wrote it years ago, and he was like, there's another way to understand the history of America.
All right.
Howard Zinn, Zinn. Yeah, he's good. So you've accomplished, in your accomplishments in your life, how would you rate these three elements? Luck, skill, and ambition. What played the biggest second and third role?
Luck, then skill, and I've got no ambition at all. So I've never had any ambition. I'm more like Pascal's man wanting to stay alone in his room.
That's smart.
Yeah.
No, I used to ask the question, is ambition based more or fear or joy? And, it's everybody would say fear. Some people would say joy, positive. But then I read William Friedkin, who made The Exorcist, said, in Hollywood, skill and luck have nothing to do with it. It's all ambition.
That's true, isn't it?
Well,
look at the political leaders we've got. We've got the most incompetent politicians in this country, in England, and it's because they've come from public schools where they were taught to be ambitious and to be told that they've got, that they are brilliant, and that, So
T.S. Eliot said, who you mentioned earlier, said that poetry is outing your inner dialogue. What language is your inner dialogue in?
What language is it in? I don't know. English mixed with, I don't know really.
That's
swearing. I don't know.
What was the word?
Swearing and I don't know really. What is my
swearing's good. Yeah. This
music as well. Yeah, music. Yeah. I like listen to lots of music in my brain. Yeah. Bebop.
Nice. We've studied the bebop vocalist. Have you studied them?
Yeah, I love the bebop vocalists. Yeah,
like King Pleasure.
I love that. Yeah, Eddie Jefferson, King
Eddie
Pleasure,
Jefferson.
Babs Gonzalez, vocalies. Yeah.
See, you got ESP. I was just going to say Babs Gonzalez. You know, John Hendricks. We interviewed John Hendricks with all these questions.
Wow.
You know,
on YouTube?
Yeah.
Oh, I love John.
No, it might be on archive.org. But anyways, he said that Charlie Parker was the highest form of talking.
Yeah.
You know, of language. Yeah. What's more fundamental, language or music?
I think music probably was earlier and language came later. I think maybe song came first, and you know, like song is the most basic thing, isn't it? Birds sing, and we were singing probably before we were speaking. I think music is it's so basic to everyone, isn't it? That the music, it's more, you know, that, and everyone responds to drums and to rhythm and it's something we don't really understand, but it's just it's so basic to us. Yeah, I saw John Hendricks. He was brilliant. Yeah.
Oh, he's amazing.
Yeah.
He had shingles in his, you know, we usually go direct to the person to set up the interview, and we had to go through his publicist or his agent, and they go, you know, you could, we say, well, we need 90 minutes. First of all, you can't say how many minutes you want, you know, and he says, well, he'll go 45. And man, after about 50 minutes, he wanted to keep talking, but you know, we didn't want to push it too much.
Yeah. Annie Ross is great.
He's a brilliant. We interviewed Annie Ross too.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. She just passed. Yeah, there's that great clip of her on YouTube singing with the Little Rascals, that Irish, an old Irish song.
Oh, right. I don't know that. Yeah. Oh, she was a Market and brilliant songwriter as well. Writing lyrics to those
brilliant.
Farmers Market and Twisted. Twisted is brilliant, isn't it?
Twisted is amazing. That's called Vocalese. She's one of the true heroes of Vocalese.
That's such a funny lyric she wrote there, isn't it? About, I didn't want to ride in double-decker buses because there was no driver on the top. To come up with that line. Brilliant.
Yeah, that song is so great. Even Cheech and Chong did a cover of it.
Yeah, mine list.
And Joni Mitchell and Cheech and Chong have both done covers of Twisted.
Yeah. Do you know Mark Murphy? Did you
oh yeah, Mark Murphy's another great. Yeah, we're into all the jazz vocalists. Yeah. But Peter, McLuhan said something about what you just, it resonated with what you just said, and I was curious your opinion of this statement. And I'm not saying I'm repeating it because I agree or disagree. It's just an intriguing percept. McLuhan was all about percepts. He wasn't about what he was about what you were saying earlier. He was just about supposing, but he was caught up in the world of academia. So people think he's a theorist. He's not. He said, song is slowed down speech. The reason cultures have different musical taste is ultimately connected to language difference. Any comment on that?
No, I don't know. The reason language difference. Yeah, I don't know. Could you say that?
So do you? Well, he's saying that song is slow down speech, that the reason cultures have different musical taste is connected to language difference. I mean, it's interesting because, you know, I love the tuba throat singers, but it's transcendental music. But basically, if you learn what they're singing about, it's their boots, the snow, and their horses.
It doesn't really matter what they're singing about, doesn't it? There's a more primal thing going on. That resonation of I've heard tuba and throat singers. Yeah, that amazing noise they make, it just hits you in your chest, doesn't it? The voice, the way the voice can resonate. And if you're in a particular space, that's another magical thing, like watching an actor, one man, just to hear a voice doing something magical. That's the same as what I was talking about theatre. To be in a space with someone doing something like that, it doesn't matter what they're talking about or singing about. It's the physical experience, the visceral sense of it.
Well, that's what Edgar Allan Poe invented, effects precede causes, with the detective novel. Then he spawned the symbolist poetry, Mallarmé, and then that spawned Finnegan's Wake. You know, that's what I say. I always say there's no content in Finnegan's Wake, and people freak out. I says, the whole point of Finnegan's Wake is to read it out loud with a group of people to gather us together. It's like singing a hootenanny or a choir.
Yeah, that's one. Yeah. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
But staying on music. Yeah, staying on music for a second. Peter, what's the function of music?
To give pleasure and to bring people together and to stimulate our emotions, to give us something to dance to I don't know. It's so many different things. I think it's so deep, music. It's so I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's what Joyce was doing with The Wake, was turning it into music.
Yeah.
But he disguised it as a book. So do artists have a moral obligation?
Yes. Yeah, I think, yeah. I mean, I don't know what it, yeah.
Is perception reality?
It's a reality. It's it's a subjective thing, perception, but it's as real as any other perception. That's in Finnegan's Wake, isn't it? The Druid and St. Patrick, where the Druid says to St. Patrick that the visible world is an illusion, that, you know, that grass isn't really green. That's the one color that's bounce back. It's all the other colors. And so when we're looking at the colored world around us, we're not seeing the real colors that are in the objects. That's what the Druid says in Finnegan's Wake. And then St. Patrick says that's a load of nonsense, and the sun comes up and the daytime colors arrive. And so that's another perception. Day and night, the two different things. You know, that so it's everything's.
That's good. Thank you. I like that. I love to learn new things about The Wake. I've been staring at it for so many years. There's so much. It's like sometimes you need someone to tap you on the shoulder. And one more question about music. Can you name an instrumental that makes you laugh?
An instrumental that makes me laugh? No, I can't. But yeah. There are. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. There's a thing called the Parade of the Pirates. It's an old 1970. It's a 78 out record I've got downstairs. I've got lots of old 78s, and I really love this. I can't remember who it's by, but it's a novelty 1930s instrumental light orchestral tune, and it's got lots of xylophone on it and Parade of the Pirates.
I'll look that up. Our friend is a 78 collector. Do you know the artist, Parade of the Pirates?
I'll look it up right now. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. So Lewis Carroll said, I believe as many six impossible things before breakfast.
Yes.
Have you believed in any impossible things lately?
No, because I don't believe things. That's what we're saying. But
nice.
I suppose things, but yeah, I'm trying to avoid believing things.
Yeah, you're proving that. I says that one of my questions is it literally possible to multitask?
Yes, I think it is, but
yeah, because you're doing it right now. I figured why waste time?
I started trying to look up this song, and now I've lost lost you. So we're trying to find the screen where you are. But,
you're probably up on your upper part. You got to find which one to hit.
Yeah.
Like up at the top.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, here's the follow-up to the impossible question. Sun Ra, have you ever listened to Sun Ra?
Yeah.
Yeah. He says, it was just written up in the New Yorker magazine. I was like, how cool is that? Really great picture. Says, the impossible attracts me because everything possible has been done and the world did not change.
Yeah, that's good.
That is amazing. So in your studies of Finnegan's Wake,
that's good. So, I can see you again now. Thank you.
Good. It's good to see you. It's good that we can connect. This is what I think this is what Joyce invented. He invented Zoom and disguised it as a book.
Yeah.
So in your studies of Finnegan's Wake, tell me one element that stayed the same and one element that's changed. Well, and you can devise what you want, what the word element means.
Yeah. Well, I suppose the elements that have stayed the same are the certain standalone chapters, like the Anna Livia Plurabelle and the Shem the Penman. I still see them the same way I ever saw them, because my dad actually bought me a record of Cyril Cusack reading the Shem the Penman, and Sinead, and it's such a beautiful record. And but the things that have changed are realizing just how often random the way it was created was, and just how free he was when he was writing it. Unlike Ulysses, when I was first reading it, I thought there was a big master plan, and everyone thought that in the 60s and 70s. So there has to be a structure, a plan, based on Vico or something. And then we gradually realized in the 80s and 90s that it just grew organically, and he didn't know where it was. Just that's what I think has changed. And recently I've been looking at all the different drafts and how he misses so many misprints, but he accepts them. He doesn't, when he corrects his proofs, he embraces things that are. He's more interested in creating new things rather than in correcting things that have gone missing. And so he sees these misprints and things as a sort of a new bit of creativity, often sort of.
That's the mistakes. The mistakes are the portals of discovery, he said.
Yeah. And
that's you flip a breakdown into a breakthrough. The best examples, McLuhan got back the medium is the message from the proof, the proof copy, and they spelled it, the medium is the massage.
Yes.
And the cover. He says, "Oh no, keep it. That's a mistake. I want to keep a mistake."
Yeah.
So that's turning a breakdown into a breakthrough. In fact, that's another ESP led perfectly into this question is Moshe Feldenkrais works with healing and movement. He says it's literally possible to identify a weakness and incorporate it to become a strength, rather than we're normally taught to overcome a weakness. Can you tell me a weakness that you've turned into a strength?
A weakness that I've turned into a strength. No, I can't. No.
That's like Joyce turned the typos. Well, another guy, Michael Silverblatt, he does a radio show called Bookworm. I said, "You ever read Finnegan's Wake?" He said, "There's a typo in every word on purpose." So it's like, how do you flip something that people say you're not good at into a strength?
Yeah. It's like when people ask you in interviews, what's your greatest weakness, and people, I'm too compassionate or something. Well, how do you describe your own weaknesses? Well, what would your weakness that you've turned into a strength be, Gerry?
You know, you're turning the tables on me. It's easy. It's like I'm like ADD, or I can't concentrate on one thing because I grew up in front of a TV set and never learned how to read really properly.
Yes.
I can read and act. I get straight A's in high school and college and act like I'm smart.
I know a weakness I've turned into a strength.
Yeah.
I can't drive. I I had a driving. My brother took me out for a driving lesson when I was 16, and he said drive into the right hand lane. He meant the middle lane for turning right. I drove into the incoming traffic at a crossroads. Shouted at me, and I jumped into the back seat, and I've never driven since. But I found not driving is a strength, because driving is a stupid thing to. Well, it means other people drive me.
That's the right adjective, Peter. I'll tell you the movie that proves your thing's stupid. Now, we don't want to think that driving is stupid, but there's a movie called Repo Man.
Oh, I love Repo Man. Yeah.
In Repo Man, the guy says, the more you drive, the less intelligent you are.
That's brilliant. Yeah, that's so good, isn't it? Alex Cox. Brilliant.
Yeah, Alex Cox, brilliant film. And in essence, basically, what you said is what Zappa did. He got a driver's license early on, but he just said, no, I'll just have people drive me. Why should I waste my brain power when someone else can drive me around? And I mean, I was born and raised in the Motor City in Flint, Michigan, and it's all cars. And then, my dad got had a good enough job to send me to college to figure out that cars are horrible. But, in essence, everything humans invent has services and disservices. Yeah. And it's how we cope with what we don't like. So like Joyce had complaints, but it was, how did he enable us to cope? And I think he satirized information overload. He says, well, why? It's like Descent in the Maelstrom by Edgar Allan Poe. You just study the patterns and then flip what they're doing, what the sensory overload people are doing to us, flip them in. The best example, I mean, I hate to bring up Trump again, was when the TikTok kids hijacked Trump's big talking engagement, and they thought there was going to be 1 million people, and that the TikTok kids, they flipped it. So they, that was like brilliant way of flipping, that turning in. So, this is really fun. I really appreciate it. I asked for 90 minutes. We got about 10 more minutes. Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
In Venice Beach.
Say it again.
Are you in Venice Beach, or where are you?
Yeah. I'm a mile and a half from the beach. I'm in Venice, California. I've lived here for 41 years, but I didn't finish my answer. I would say I'm not able to concentrate and do things like you're supposed to, like linear, like you have the ability to study history and write history books. I mean, I can do that, but my lack of focus means that I could be like Finnegan's Wake. So I can't read really good or follow the story in a movie, but I can make feature films and write books that appear that I appear like I can. I can fake it really good. And basically, I just flipped non-concentrating into a Finneganese world. Like I can run a Finnegan's Wake reading club without reading all the other Joyce books. But as soon as I started with COVID attending the Austin, Texas Finnegan's Wake reading club, I learned I don't know diddly squat about Finnegan's Wake in reality of knowing Joyce's past. The big question is, do you have to know all of Joyce to get Finnegan's Wake? What would you say to that, Peter?
No, certainly not. No.
Yay! I'm free.
No, you don't need to know anything. You can just respond to it. You should.
Right, but does it help to know the rest of Joyce to get Finnegan's Wake?
you'll get more out of, you'll get lots of stuff out of it that you wouldn't get out if you didn't know that, and you'll get links and connections, and you will you know, because of his personalities, he's such an unusual person, and his certain interests, and what he's in, how things link up. But you don't need to know anything, really. I don't think. I think you can
Peter,
onto it.
Yeah, Peter, you're a high level person. I appreciate that, because that's what people think, is that, oh, come and read Finnegan's Wake with us. Well, I don't know anything about Joyce or the book. I said, you don't have to know anything about it. And that doesn't register, because people want to know, well, what page are you on? Can I get caught up? Can I find out where you are in the story? No. But the interesting thing is that with the way culture is busting artists now, whether it's Bill Cosby, Woody Allen, Wagner, anybody, Miles Davis, like guy asked Miles Davis, do you like white people? And it's like, he has a reason to hate white people. They beat him up when he was a musician. The white cops beat him up. So whatever people do that isn't socially proper, and you create art, can you separate that? And some people go, well, yeah, I can like so-and-so's music or films, but I don't like that they were a sexist or a racist. So the beauty is that with Joyce is, can you separate the art from the artist? He's not really doing anything bad or socially wrong in Finnegan's Wake, but can you not know anything about James Joyce and just have fun with it? And as you say, yes,
you can. Yeah. Just because of the music of the words and the way it affects you. Like, it's like music, isn't it? Like we were saying. Yeah.
So here's another statement that I'm not saying I agree or disagree with, but it's a cliche that goes, you create what you resist. One creates what one resists. And Bob Goldthwait, the comedian, morphed it into, you are what you hate. So James Joyce said it. It's a curious thing how your mind is super saturated with the religion in which you say you disbelieve.
Yeah.
And then Louis Buñuel nailed it. He said, thank God I'm an atheist.
Yes.
So, so how do you react to this statement? Or what do you think about this statement? One creates what one resists. You create what you resist.
Yeah. It shapes you, doesn't it? It was shaped. Yeah. That kind of an upbringing that Joyce had. Yeah, his whole idea of the artist's role was based on the priest's role as a, so he saw himself as a priest, really, of the imagination. So he said the Jesuits shaped his mind. And
does he say that in Elman or some letter, that the artist's role is like the priest role?
He said it in his letters to his brother Stanislas. He said, "Don't you think there's something like the mystery? What I'm doing is like the mystery of the Mass. I'm converting." It's Stanislas Joyce's book, actually, My Brother's Keeper.
Oh, is it really? Good.
It's my he's trying to convert the bread of everyday life into something eternal. I can't remember the exact quote, but it's something like that. And he talks about that a lot in the portrait as well. That he despises the priests, the cheap. He sees them as cheap copies of what he was doing, which is a spiritual regeneration of the nation through art. The idea that using the bread of everyday life.
Wait, he said that priests are cheap copies of what he's doing?
We implied that. He hated priests. He really used to really he called them like the black vermin on the body of Ireland, and he satirized, in like in Dubliners, there's that Father Purdon in Grace, who's this monstrous mechanical figure who's going on about your accounts, doing your spiritual accounts, and
yeah,
himself as a real priest of the imagination.
I think all the, you know, the heroes in my life, Frank Zappa, James Joyce, they're all, and Louis Buñuel, they're all about what they hate. You know, that's the what do they call that? The fodder. That's what they need. That, you know.
Yeah. The grist to your
The grist. Yeah.
And
that's
why he always wrote about Dublin, although he couldn't stand to be there because it was
right.
You know, because it was his subject. Because of
So can satire be destructive?
I'm sure it can. It must be awful to be satirized, mustn't it? To be personally watching, you know, when Donald Trump sees himself lampooned on Saturday Night Live by what's his name?
Alex Baldwin. Yeah.
Baldwin. It's destructive to his ego, isn't it? It's
destructive.
And it's
It's funny because I asked this comedy writer, can satire be destructive? And he said, that's the job of satire.
Yeah, it is. It is, isn't it? Yeah.
Because Swift says, he compares satire to the mirror in which people could see every face but their own.
Yeah. That's nice.
Yeah. So how do you find peace of mind?
Well, I'm enjoying nature at the moment, walking around, and we got the swifts at the moment. You know the swifts, the birds, they come over from Africa and they're here from May till August, and it's just so beautiful to watch them flying around the house, because normally we just have herring gulls squawking, but the swifts are really lovely, and the sunset, and I like the beach and swimming. Went swimming today in the sea.
Nice.
Lovely, I had a lovely swim today.
That's a good sport. Swimming is good. Nature's a good way to find peace of mind. Peter, if you were walking down the street today and you met yourself as a 12-year-old, what would you say to your 12-year-old self?
I would say, don't worry that you failed your 11 plus and went to the secondary modern school, because you would be much happier there than if you'd gone to the grammar school where my brother went. Whereas, you know, because we had this thing, because there was an academic exam where they decided who was academic and who wasn't. And I failed because my maths were no good. So I went to where we had metalwork and woodwork rather than Latin. And but we had much more of a relaxed, free schooling. We didn't have to wear uniforms, whereas my brother and sister went to the grammar and they had to wear uniforms, and they were much like based on a private school. And in fact, so
what's their professions? What did they end up doing?
Well, my sister's an artist and my brother was a gardener, but all three of us have really got no ambition particularly. So we've all got more high achieving partners. So
that's smart.
Which is down to my mum, really. Yeah.
Which way should toilet paper come off the roll, over or under?
Over.
Why?
I don't know. Because it's because it's clockwise.
Yeah. The patent for it has it going over 100 years ago. They invented that. So I'm glad you're having fun. This is I just got a few more. If a publisher was to release your autobiography off the top of your head, what would the title be?
I don't know. I don't know. Muddling through, I suppose. Yeah.
Meddling through. Mud or med? M-E-D or M?
Muddling through, yeah. Just off the top of my head.
Nice. And then they want to scent, the publisher wants to scent the glue in the binding. What smell would it be?
It would smell of hyssop. Hyssop. My favorite smell. Hyssop is
what is it?
It's a herb and it reminds me of Greece. It's the only smell you can get that's like the smell of Greece, the Greek hills. HYSSOP. You get it with blue or pink flowers. And I've got some growing right next to me. And when I smell it, it's the smell of going to Greece, which I love to go to. And so,
nice.
Yeah.
I'll check it out. If a statue was built in your honor, where would you want it displayed, and what would it be made of?
It would be out on the West Pier in Brighton, and it would be made of which is a rusting ruin, and it would be made of the same rusting ruin, I suppose.
Nice. Yes, rust is always living. Peter, please tell me something good you never had and you never want.
Something good I never had and I never want. Something good. Well, I'm a vegetarian, so I haven't eaten. There's lots of amazing fish, aren't there? I admit, I wish I liked fish, and people tell me those are amazing things, but so I've never wanted it, but yeah, I don't know.
That's good. You answered it. If you were in a vat of vomit up to your neck and someone threw a bag of shit at your face, what would you do?
I would turn the other direction, spin around,
Good.
spin around, spin around.
Turn the other direction.
Yeah.
That is a good answer. Spin around. I love that. So, you know Joseph Beuys, the artist?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, he wrote a whole nother chapter to Finnegan's Wake.
Did he? I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was a Wakean. And his quote is, "Make the secrets productive." Lou Welsh was a beat poet and a ad man. He said, "Guard the secrets, constantly reveal them." But it was another major Wakean, Thornton Wilder, in 1928. He said, "Art is confession. Art is the secret told, but art is not only the desire to tell one's secret, it's the desire to tell it and hide it at the same time." You've laid your cards on the table for 90 minutes. I'm grateful. I'm not implying you haven't answered this, but Peter, what's it really all about for you?
What's Finnegan's Wake really all about, or what's everything?
You can put the first part could be what's life, or what's life really all about for you, and then put it what's Finnegan's Wake all about.
Well, for me, life's all about learning new things and trying to make sense of this strange world we've been flung into and we didn't decide to be in, and just to try and make sense of things. Yeah.
No, that's a good answer, and it's almost like you can apply that to Finnegan's Wake, right? What's Finnegan's Wake really all about to you?
Yeah. In fact, Finnegan's Wake is like a model of making sense of life, isn't it? You could say, yeah. It's some amazing conundrum. Life is a conundrum, and so is Finnegan's Wake. So we can,
Conundrum is such a good word. I'm going to do the etymology on that word. Okay, just a couple more. Now, this is John. This is Alan Watts, Peter. He asked 5 quick questions just off the top of your head in a couple words. Who started it all?
Who started it all? Homo erectus.
Are we going to make it?
Some of us will.
Where do we put it?
The nearest possible place.
Who's cleaning it up?
Someone else.
Is it serious?
No.
Nice. Boy, you did great there. Okay. So just 2 more and we're done. Peter, what a true delight it's been spending this time with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
What's the healthiest or impactful cultural shift you see developing today?
The healthiest, it's skepticism about government.
Yeah.
In some way, but that's also a bad thing. So I think that's good. Yeah.
But it's sort of being aware of what the government's doing to us.
Yeah, questioning, critical. Being
critical thinking and questioning.
Yeah.
Let me just ask you on the side before the last question, because I'm curious of this. People freak out about fake news. And about 5 years ago, if you looked up fake news in Wikipedia, it said satire news. And fake news, that was the week that was. Remember that show? That was from England, right?
Yeah,
that was fake news. It was satire news.
Yeah.
But then they morphed satire news and fake news, and they said that's two different things. One is disinformation and one is satire news. So there's a fine line, and you can just say, if you're a disinformation agent now, you can just say, hey, I'm doing satire. And if you got 1 million listeners, then who's the judge? So I think it enables people to develop critical thinking skills. But a lot of people think, oh no, fake news is horrible. It's ruining us. I says, well, it's your duty to figure it out. You can figure it out as much as you want. Which way do you feel? Am I off a little, or do you think, there's a function in fake news that we can flip it?
Yeah, there's a third meaning of fake news, which is the Trump meaning, isn't it? Where you dismiss everything as fake news. So there's a complete uncertainty of what to believe there. So I think the big problem is we're not being educated to have critical thinking so much. I think maybe that, that's what. Yeah, I don't know really. Yeah.
It's called media literacy or critical thinking.
That's the most important thing, isn't it? To teach young people to be critical of, because to understand where information comes from, because of all the conspiracy theories at the moment that are spreading around, about the vaccines, about that, to know what to trust and to look at the evidence. We can find the evidence, but we have to use scientific, just to look for the clues to where is it coming from, who's saying it, social media.
Well, here's another tangent question before the last one is Finnegan's Wake true?
Is it true? No, probably not.
Good. I like the probably. You mean it could be.
Can be.
Can be.
Yeah.
Because in my opinion, Finnegan's Wake is the most true thing because it gives you that supposed thing.
Yeah, like, in that sense,
because
McLuhan's
McLuhan's big thing was, he says, I don't explain, I explore. And so if we, or back to Louis Buñuel, he said, I'm for anyone who seeks the truth, but I part ways when they claim they found it.
Yeah.
So, it's forever changing and morphing, but we want to believe things, but it doesn't mean there's a lot of fine line there. It's also Schopenhauer, I think his is the best. All truth passes through 3 stages. 1, it's ridiculed. 2, it's violently opposed. 3, it's accepted as being self-evident. Oh, I knew that all along.
Yeah.
It's forever. It's up forever morphing, That book I wanted to bring up, I'm sure you've seen it. It's called How Did James Joyce Write Finnegan's Wake? It took those 2 guys 30 years to write that book. Have you ever seen that book?
I've seen it. I've got a book called do you mean this one? how Joyce wrote Finnegan's Wake?
Yes, yes. Have you ever read that?
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, it's every chapter of Finnegan's Wake is written by a different person describing how he wrote it. Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah,
these are the
it is. It's pretty amazing. So, who are your 3 top Joyce reference people that in all your years of studying the Wake, who do you most like to turn to?
Yeah, well, my favorite is James Atherton, who wrote a book called The Books at the Wake, which to me is the best book ever written about Finnegan's Wake. It's not just a description of Joyce's reading, but he looks at the Joyce's motivation in writing it, and he looks at the magical side of it. That Joyce thought he was making a work of magic, and he's a brilliant writer, Atherton. I like David Heyman, The Wake in Transit. That's very good. That's about the early development of the early sketches. And David Heyman I saw him talk once, and he had a really good idea about how it developed. And apart from that, I like Roland McHugh wrote a very funny book called The Finnegan's Wake Experience, which is all about actually, no, there's a really good book by Fritz Senn, Joycean Memoirs, which is very good. It's about all of the lots of gossip about all about the top Joyceans, which I quite like reading about.
Who's the Joycean Memoirs guy?
Fritz Senn from Zurich. It's called Joycean Memoirs, M-U-R-M-Y.
Wow, what a great resource! Thank you.
Yeah, it's cool. Here it is. Joycean Memoirs.
Yeah,
it's
boy, that's a good source. That was really beautiful. I think I have a couple of those books on my shelf, so I'll pull them down and give them a gander. Well, again, it's been really fun. Peter, the last question is, what gives you the most optimism?
The spring and the weather and the swifts and the return of the swifts from Africa, because it means that they're coming back, that despite all of this climactic problem,
look to the skies, the birds. You're saying the birds, look to the skies. Yeah. Peter, thank you so much. It's really been an honor and pleasure.
Thank you, Gerry. I enjoyed it.